Alright, so we've got this question. The formula for the volume of a cone is V is equal to 1/3 pi r square. The radius of the cone, so we want to find out r, right? Now we are given V is equal to 1/3 pi r square h. We want to isolate this r. So that means we want to do SAD map, but we want to keep doing the opposite of SAD map. So whatever we see, we'll do the opposite. Alright? So that we'll finally get the value of r. So let's start. So we know all of these things are multiplying, right? So multiplication. What's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So we'll be dividing all these values. So let's divide pi on both sides, right? So this will cancel. Then let's divide h. You can do multiple things at the same time, right? Now what do we have? 1/3 r square. Now this 1/3 could be taken as a multiplication or a division by 3. So if we take the division of 3, what's the opposite of division? It's multiply. So multiply 3 on both sides, right? So do we get this? This will cancel off. So what are we getting? R square is equal to 3v over pi h. Now we see an exponent. What type of exponent do we see? A square. What's the opposite? Square root. So let's take the square root on both sides. Square root, square root. This will cancel. What's our final answer? 3b over pi h and the square root. Let's look for this. 3b over pi h and square root. Answer choice 1. Alright, now we have a formula for the trapezoid. The area of a trapezoid is given by a is equal to half h b1 plus b2. Express b1. So we want to work with this thing. We want to get rid of everything other than b1. So we want b1. Our answer should be b1 is equal to something. That's what we are looking for, right? So we'll work with SAD map again. So now we have a is equal to half h b1 plus b2. Now let's run through SAD map. We don't see subtraction. We see addition. But the addition is within the parentheses, right? So the last step. So it's within this. So the addition is part of the parentheses. Then we see division. We see division of 2. What's the opposite of division? It is multiplication. So let's multiply both sides by 2. So this will cancel off. So now what do we have? 2a is equal to h. 1h means h. So let's just leave it as h. b1 plus b2. Then this means it's multiplying. So now we are multiplying. We are working with multiplication. So what's the opposite of multiply? Divide. So let's divide h on both sides. So we got this far. This is awesome. So we got 2a over h is equal to b1 plus b2. We need b1. Now what do we see? Right? At this step we can do it because it's just b1 and b2 and there's a parenthesis. We can drop the parentheses. So now we have an addition. What's the opposite of addition? Subtraction. So let's subtract b2 on both sides. So what do we get? b1, right? 2a over h minus b2. So that's our expression. So if you keep running through SAD map, you'll notice that you're going to finally get a correct answer. Okay? Now let's try the second one. The area of a trapezoid is 60 square feet. Its height is 6 feet. And one base is 12 feet. Find the number of feet in the other base. So we already found in this part, we already found base 1 is equal to 2 times the area divided by the height minus base 2. So let's use this expression to help us find out. So what all information do we have? We know A is 60, we know the height is 6, and we know one of the bases, let's take it as B2, is 12. And we can find the other base. So let's plug all these values in. 2 times 60 divided by 6 minus 12. Now 60 divided by 6 is 10. And then 2 times 10 is 20. What's 20 minus 12? 8 feet. So that's our answer. Okay, now this is similar to the question we did previously. So the equation for the volume of a cylinder is V is equal to pi r square h, the positive value of r. Again, we are trying to find out r. So we'll run through SADMAP and see what all we have. So V is equal to pi r square h. Whenever we write something like this in algebra, we mean that all of these are multiplying. So we are working with multiplication. What is the opposite of multiplication? Division, right here, right? So we want r, that's our question. So we need to get rid of the square, we need to get rid of pi, we need to get rid of h, but we have to do it stepwise. Right now we can only get rid of the multiplication part. The exponent, the square, we'll do later. Okay? So let's get rid of a few things. Let's divide pi and let's divide h. So this will cancel, this will cancel. So V over pi h is equal to r squared. Now we see the exponent, right? We see a square. What's the opposite? Opposite is square root. So let's take a square root on both sides. Square root. So what do we get? R is equal to V over pi h and the square root. Let's find this. V over pi h and square root. Answer choice 1. So again, we go through SADMAP, right here. And we'll do the working and we get 2d over a square root is equal to t. Alright, so we have this, the volume of a large can of tuna fish can be evaluated using the formula V is equal to pi r square h. Write an equation to find the radius. Again, we have got to isolate r. So let's use SADMAP. V is equal to pi r square h. All of these things are multiplying. We need r. So let's get rid of a few things. Let's divide pi. Let's divide h. So what do we have? R square is equal to V over pi h. Right? Now we see an exponent. What type of exponent? It's a square. What's the opposite? Square root. So let's take the square root on both sides. Now see, if you ask yourself these questions, what am I observing? You'll be able to get rid of most of these confusions or difficulties when you're working with equations. What's my observation? Am I seeing an addition, a subtraction, a multiplication, a division, an exponent, a parenthesis? How do I get rid of that? Think opposites. Once you think opposites, you'll be able to work with it. Alright. Now let's try the next part. Determine the diameter. So remember, the diameter is 2 times the radius. That's important. So we want to find out the diameter of a large can of tuna fish. You probably have eaten tuna fish or you've opened a can at some point. So you'll see that it's a cylindrical can. It might not be important to you, but to a manufacturer, how much quantity is going in that can, what's the diameter, what's the radius, what's the height. Those are essential attributes for not only transporting but also for storing those things, whatever you're storing in it. So for them, it's extremely important. So now we know the volume is 66 inches, cubic inches, and the height is 3.3. We're looking for the diameter. So we'll have to use this radius expression that we found. And then once we use this, we'll find the diameter, okay, by just multiplying our end result by 2. So I'm going to plug in the values. So the volume is 66. Let's put that in, 66. Pi is 3.14. And the height they've given to you is 3.3. So let's plug that in. And then we'll divide all of this. And your calculator can do this entire operation, so I'll put it in that way and give you an answer. Let me plug it in. So I get 2.52. But I need, this is my radius, right? This is in inches. I need my diameter. So the diameter is 2 times radius. So multiply this value by 2. So you get 5.04 inches for the diameter. Right? They're saying find it to the nearest inch. So let's round this off. What would we write it as? 5 or 6? I would write it as 5 inches. So that's my final answer. The expression for R, the value for D. Alright, so we've got this formula, this question rather. Michael borrows money from his uncle who's charging him simple interest using the formula I is equal to PRT. To figure out what the interest rate is, Michael rearranges the formula to find R. So that's our question, find R. Now we remember through SADMAP, the opposite of multiplication is division. We know these are multiplying. So let's divide P and T on both sides. So P will cancel, T will cancel, R is equal to I divided by PT. Answer choice 3. Okay, so Boyle's law involves the pressure and volume of gas in a container. It can be represented by P1, V1 is equal to P2, V2. When the formula is solved for P2, the result is we have 4 choices, so let's solve them. So let's use SADMAP. We have P1, V1 is equal to P2, V2. Remember, this is multiplication. So we want P2, that's our question. So let's get rid of this. What's the opposite of multiply? Divide. So divide V2 on both sides. So P1, V1 is equal to V2. Divided by V2 is equal to P2. So let's look for this. Answer choice 3. The formula for blood flow rate is given by F is equal to P1 minus P2 divided by R, where F is the flow rate, P1 is the initial pressure, P2 is the final pressure, R is the resistance created by blood vessel size. Which formula cannot be derived from the given formula? So they've made P1, P2 and R the subject. So let's do that. Let's make P1 the subject, P2 the subject, and then let's do R. So let's use SADMAP. We see a division. What's the opposite? Multiply. So let's multiply R. FR is equal to P1 minus P2. Now we see a subtraction. What's the opposite? Addition. So let's see if this is what we get. FR plus P2. So this is true. Okay, let's do choice 2. So for choice 2, I'm going to copy this result because this is the same step. Then let's subtract P1. But we've got a negative over here. So to get rid of this negative part, we'll divide -1. So this FR will become negative and this will become positive. So let's look at choice 2. Choice 2 even works out, so that's true. Let's see if 3 and 4, which one works out. So we already have this step, so let's carry on with this step. So we have FR is equal to P1 minus P2. These are multiplying. What's the opposite of multiply? Divide. So let's divide F on both sides. So this is answer choice 4. So which one doesn't work? 3. Okay, then we have this one, the formula Fg is equal to G m1 m2 divided by r squared. So this is used in planets. So there's the gravitational force between the two objects where G is the gravitational constant, m1 is the mass of one object, m2 is the mass of the other object, r is the distance between them. We want to find r, so our question is find r. Okay, so SAD map. We see a division. What's the opposite? Multiply. So let's multiply r squared on both sides. This will cancel. Then we see a multiplication, so let's divide Fg on both sides. So this will cancel. So now we have G m1 m2 divided by Fg. Then we see an exponent. Which one is it? It's a square. What's the opposite? Square root. Let's take the square root on both sides. So r is equal to G m1 m2 divided by Fg, and then the square root. Okay, so we are given this situation. Students were asked to write a formula for the length of a rectangle by using the formula for its perimeter. So this is given, P is equal to 2L plus 2W. So in all these answer choices, L is the subject. So let's make L the subject and see which ones are true. Alright, use SAD map again. So we see addition. So let's subtract. This cancels. Then we see multiplication. We'll divide. So if you look at answer choice number 3, this is an expression for 3. L is equal to P minus 2W divided by 2. Then you can separate the half part. So you'll get this, which is choice 2. And then if we multiply or distribute inside, we'll get half P, and 2 times half is 1, which gives us answer choice 1. So all 3 are true. So our answer is 4. Alright, so we've got this formula for converting degrees Fahrenheit to degrees Kelvin. So we use degrees Fahrenheit in the US, degrees Celsius maybe in Pakistan, and I think even the UK uses degrees Celsius. Kelvin is only used for scientific purposes. Named after Lord Kelvin, he was a physicist, so that's why it's called the Kelvin. So we want to find out F in terms of K. So right now we have K in terms of F. So again, let's use SADMAP. K is equal to 5/9 F plus 459.67. So we see a division, multiply, then we see some multiplications, so we'll use division, and we see some additions where we'll use subtraction. So multiply 9, this cancels, and then divide 5 because it's multiplying over here, so divide 5. So now we have 9/5 K is equal to F plus 459.67. Then that's an addition, so let's subtract. This can cancel. This is F 9/5 K minus 459.67. That's our answer. Okay, the formula for electrical power is P is equal to I squared R. We use electrical power to run all our appliances. So I is the current, R is the resistance. The formula for I in terms of P and R is, so we want to make I the subject. So P is equal to I squared R. Maybe you come across these terms, hey, the current of needed to run this appliance is this much, the power is this much, the resistance in the copper wire. You might have come across some of these terms. So we want to make I the subject. We have a multiplication. So let's use SADMAP. So you see how SADMAP is so important. So we see multiplication, what's the opposite? Division. So let's divide R on both sides. So I squared is equal to P divided by R. And then we see an exponent. We see a square. What's the opposite of square? Square root. So I is equal to P divided by R in the square root. Okay, the formula for the volume of a cone is V is equal to 1/3 pi R square H. Solve the equation for H. So that's what we are looking for. Again, let's use SADMAP. So we see division was the opposite, multiply. We see multiplication was the opposite, divide. So let's multiply 3 on both sides. We're trying to make H the subject. And now let's divide pi R square on both sides. So pi cancels, R squares cancel. So H is equal to 3V divided by pi R square. Okay, the formula A is equal to Vf minus Vt is used to calculate acceleration. You might experience this during driving. The car is accelerating as the change in velocity over the period of time. Solve the formula for the final velocity. So we are trying to find out Vf in terms of initial velocity, acceleration, and time. So Vf minus Vi divided by t. So this is what we are trying to solve. So again, let's use SADMAP. So we see a division as the opposite, multiply. So let's multiply. So T times A or AT, we'll write it in alphabetical order. So let's write it as AT is equal to VF minus VI. Now we see a subtraction. Was the opposite? Addition. So let's add VI on both sides. So this cancels. So VF is equal to AT plus VI.